is showing you that this kind of character is not one that would lie on someone. She doesn't even like public attention. So after 50 years of freedom fighting for the community, she deserves to show her facts and information, and we deserve to hear it. Considering the bond of this relationship, tell me how you would feel. Not only did the killing of her son happen by the young children that she raised and gave financial and career opportunities to, but also it happened at the hands of the same black community that she fought for over 50 years for. And it happened only weeks after the murder of her beloved Tupac, who was like a son to her. Nevertheless, with heavy convincing on my part, Ms. Fuller chose to argue the facts, when it is also perfectly legitimate if she argued with rage and the utmost venom.
They showed me character, you understand? Because no one flipped on me. It showed me a side that I never seen that side of the ghetto life. Because if it was my family, it'd probably been crazy.
Because if it was my family, it'd probably been crazy.
Even in my book, no one will ever hear me speaking bad about Yasmin. No one will find anything on the internet of me speaking bad about that lady because she always been good to me.
Follow me around for a day of workouts, classes, and practice.
But you 14, 15 years old, you killed them. And imagine an individual who's not in his right mind. He probably was 13, 14, 15 years old, always high.
Okay, let's state for the record that Rashad Clark, known as Roddy, was not a kid or a 13-year-old child on November 10th, 1996, when he and another assailant shot Yaki in the right eye, blowing the back of his brains out. When Roddy shot and killed Yaki, he was actually 16 years old, about to turn 17 years old in the next 4 weeks. He fathered 2 children by the age of 15 with a girl who was 16 years of age. So when we hear words like little cousin, about the age of, just a kid, it's a way to tone down Mutai's version of the story to remove responsibility from someone who at the time would definitely be considered as a young man, not at all removed from the age of majority.
Like my little cousin said, we was kids. And if it's an accident, you should turn yourself in. I said, okay, if it's an accident, man, turn yourself in then.
Well, Roddy did turn himself in, but only after being hunted by street crews and Orange Homicide for 4 days and making several frantic phone calls to family and friends. Roddy gave a confession before homicide detectives, which is stated in full in the book, The Homicide of Yafeo Fuller. However, after Roddy's confession given November 14th, 1996, you won't believe what happened next. Roddy was literally released by Orange City Police Department on bail. He wasn't sentenced for Yaki's murder till the case came up again 2 years later when Roddy was nearly 19 years old. While out on bail, March 1998, Roddy racked up a list of criminal charges which included manufacturing controlled substances, basically drug dealing, and a second charge for drug dealing near a school property. This all culminated in his arrest June 30th, 1998, where he took a plea deal for those various charges, including the charge of the murder of Yaki, which was reduced to second-degree manslaughter. More on this later, man, because it gets wild. I'm trying to tell you, man. Roddy served 3 years for Yaki's murder of a 7-year sentence, 3 years mandatory minimum. He was sentenced to an additional 5-year term with a 2-year, 6-month mandatory minimum unrelated to the conviction for Yaki. Roddy returned to the streets by 2005 to collect a slew of more criminal charges. The charges range from various speeding and traffic violations, fraud, to manufacturing and selling heroin and cocaine, and possession of drugs with the intent to use. Roddy later went on to sell large quantities of fentanyl, the same drug that took the life of rapper Mac Miller, actor Michael K. Williams, Little Peep, Bobby Brown Jr., and more. Roddy's fentanyl and heroin was called King of Death in the last car. Several people fatally overdosed on his drug, specifically one man on November 14th and another woman on September 7th, 2016. How once it happened, his drug partner Dawson taxed Roddy to laugh about how another one bites the dust. Roddy, by the very facts and evidence provided, is and has been a career criminal for the last 27 years.
he's positive. He's staying out of trouble, just raising his family, his kids. Came home, alhamdulillah, he accepted the religion of Islam.
Where is Roddy now? Well, as of 2016, Roddy is doing 37 years in FCI Williamsburg Prison in South Carolina for an interstate fentanyl and heroin conspiracy. This conspiracy involved Kenneth Bone Stewart, Eskern Dawson Jr., and approximately 5 additional drug co-conspirators. Roddy to date has performed 3 killings on record, 1 from a gun and 2 from the sale of bad drugs. He won't be up for parole until the year 2033 when he's 54 or 55 years old.
But me as an individual who know my cousin, I know my cousin, he's not going to just go kill someone for no reason. You understand?
We would discover next by the facts whether the killing of Yaki was premeditated or accidental. Let's see what happened the day of the murder.
Nah, look at this nigga's body. That nigga looks like a spider text. Well, that there is my people's right there, Castro. You know what I'm saying? Maintain. Y'all niggas can't fuck with me.
There were 5 key witnesses in Yaki's murder on November 10th, 1996 in New Jersey. In cases of premeditated murder, one must establish whether the victim and the defendant had a poor history of social interactions with each other. All evidence suggests that Roddy and Yaki did have a poor history. In the police reports, there were constant references to both of them hiking, teasing, and making joking insults. Even Roddy said to Yaki, "I don't like your tall red ass." Upon seeing Roddy, Hussein Fatal, a good friend of Muta and the last person who was with Yaki before his murder, said in his autobiography, "Bro, that nigga right there ain't cool. There's something about him I don't like." In Fatal's book, Roddy is called Scotty. Fatal actually on page 111 to 114 states how he warns Yaki about Roddy and tells him, "You'll wind up having to kill him or he'll kill you over a fucking little ass piece of bread." It's important to know that Yaki at this time in 1996 was well known in the music industry. He was doing tours and recording music with Tupac Shakur, who at the time was an internationally known Hollywood movie star and musician. He was on the same level of what a Jamie Foxx or a Michael B. Jordan is today. So when Tupac was murdered in Las Vegas, Suge, according to Fatal, was talking, didn't sound good, just a whole lot of nothingness. So according to Fatal, him and Yaki left the Outlaw Group because they didn't want to do the Dog and Pony show that Death Row Records wanted the rest of the Outlaw Immortals to do. However, when Yaki and Fatal returned to the small local neighborhood of Montclair with big face hundreds, most of the attitude towards Fatal and Yaki was, "Y'all niggas thought y'all was gonna blow up big. Now you back out here with us." It was a very hostile, mocking kind of environment. In fact, Yaki's girlfriend states he wore a bulletproof vest around this time because people were jealous and said he thought he was bad because he rapped with Tupac. It was in this environment where Yaki and Fatal returned back to hustling and where Roddy started hanging around Yaki. If Tupac was murdered September 1996 and Muta introduced Yaki to Roddy in October 96 before he left to Atlanta, then we are looking at a situation where Roddy didn't even know Yaki for a full 3 months before he killed him.
TurboTax locations are now open. TurboTax locations are now open in your neighborhood.
Full 3 months before he killed him.
October, I went to Atlanta. But before I left, I introduced Kadafi to my little cousin.
The full branch of Yaki's premeditated murder by Roddy happened a week earlier on Friday, November 1st, 1996 at the Exxon gas station. When Roddy was asked by homicide detectives in the presence of his lawyer and his grandfather, Mr. Ezra Bill, when was the last time you spoke to Yaki? His response was, at the intersection of Bloomfield Avenue and New Street. This location matches the same location that Garfield Sharp stated an argument happened between Roddy and Yaki over $100. According to Garfield's signed oath, he states that Roddy's words were, "I'ma kill you. I'ma kill you." Yaki responded, "You couldn't kill a bug." Roddy responded, "I got the gat on me right now." Yaki responded, "I don't care if you got 30 gats." We can see from here, with Yaki having a reputation for hanging with famous rap stars and returning with big face hundreds, that there was a reluctant admiration by Roddy for Yaki. There was also an annoyance by Yaki for Roddy. The details of this argument can be read in full in the book, The Homicide of Yafeo Fula. Under criminal law, Roddy's words, "I'm going to kill you," is called a criminal threat. And this is important. There's a lot of people jump on social media, making threats on Twitter. Man, that shit is a misdemeanor. And if something happens and someone dies, it's a felony. So in order to establish premeditated intent, we must know were there any threats from the defendant before and or during the killing. The Exxon gas station argument on Friday, November 1st, 1996 proves that there were threats made from Roddy. From Levi's reports and Garfield's reports, we know that Roddy made numerous threats from November 1st to November 10th about killing Yaki.
As he answered the door.
He said, "Yeah, what if it's somebody coming to kill me?" And we all started laughing like, "Just get the door." And then he came and opened, and he came to the door.
A premeditated intent to kill requires that the defendant spend some time to reflect, deliberate, reason, or weigh their decision to kill rather than killing on a sudden impulse. For 10 days, y'all, Roddy took to deliberate how he would kill Yaki, starting from the argument carried out at the Exxon gas station. November 9th, 1996, Saturday evening, Fatal drops Yaki off at Levi's apartment at 325 Mechanic Street.
Well, I actually had just dropped him off. I got him a ride from the hood to the projects. And you know, when he got out the car, I asked him, I showed him the gun, and I asked him, I said, "You need it? It's something we always did." And he said, "Nah." So he went to his girl house, and my girl at the time came with me.
Neither Claudia Johnson, Bruce Washington, Garfield, or Levi speak of seeing Yaki with a gun. In fact, even during the argument at the Exxon, Roddy asks Yaki, "Where's your gun at?" And Yaki replied, "I don't need a gat." Early morning, November 10th, 1996, nearly 4 a.m., Roddy made a call to Yaki's girlfriend, Levi, and asked for her apartment number and told her, "Don't tell Yafeo I'm coming over." This suggests that his intent was to ambush Yaki in secrecy. It was definitely a way to show Yaki that he did have plenty gas, and I'm going to prove it to you today. All of this showcases premeditated intent to murder. Roddy claims in his confessions that Yaki pulled out his own gun and asked Roddy to inspect it for him, and while doing it, the gun accidentally went off and shot Yaki. Well, this is why a jury of your peers is important, because there are several things wrong with Roddy's confession story. Dr. Huey P. Newton, with a bachelor's degree in criminal law, states a peer is a person from a similar economic, social, religious, geographical, environmental, historical, and racial background. To do this, the court will be forced to select a jury from the black community from which the black defendant came, which means it takes a street mentality to judge a street mentality. Everyone involved in this crime of Yaki's killing were thinking with a street mentality. No person from the streets is going to let you hold their loaded gun, especially not someone who just had an argument with you weeks before. And especially when you're already paranoid when somebody as close as Tupac was shot 58 days prior. It's irrational that he would hand you a loaded gun under these circumstances. Add this to the statements from Levi, Claudia, and Fatal, all saying they never saw Yaki with a gun that night. Neither was a gun found on Yaki's body, nor were there additional bullets found in his pants or jacket pockets. What gun owner doesn't have additional ammunition? We can establish by the facts that this was not Yaki's gun that killed him, nor did Yaki hand his gun to Roddy to inspect it. However, we can place the gun in Roddy's hand as the original possessor of the gun, which is the real reason Roddy knew the exact color, model, and make of the gun. Levi, who was at the apartment when Yaki was murdered, said Sharif Clark stated to her over a telephone call that Roddy said it was an accident and that Roddy pulled out a gun and made a mistake and shot him. Key word here is Roddy pulled out a gun, indicating he had the gun on his person. When homicide asked Roddy in front of his attorney, who could have easily just stopped him? Did he have guns? Roddy responded in his confession, he frequently plays with guns. Key word here is frequently.
My little cousin Roddy, he also never would he always had a gun on him, you know what I mean? From my standpoint of view, my cousin was gonna protect him. My cousin was always with a gun.
Therefore,